right. Hey, sorry for the hiccups.
No, that's all good fun.
It's good to meet you. Where
Oh,
are you coming out of?
at the moment, I'm in New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That
so
that's one of the places on the planet that I would love to get to sometime.
you should. It's a stunning place. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
wonderful.
good way of putting it. Yeah.
Mm.
I knew a guy years ago that worked in the States that was a pilot from there. He was a really cool guy, and he just totally learned me up on New Zealand. I had no idea. Um,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
what kind of an expansive world it was, and it's cool. So yeah,
yeah.
and the beauty of technology is that it feels like you're here in Kansas City. We're right next to each other, so we're really
Right.
crossing the pond well.
Yeah, that's great,
So
isn't it? We live in the best time in history
absolutely,
to
you
be able to
bet.
do
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
yeah. So
Mm.
speaking of history, thank you for taking a minute out today. And I would love to begin everything with the fact that we've all lived through quite a thing in history with the pandemic. How did you survive the last 3 years? And how has it changed the way that you do things now?
Are we recording now
Yes,
as we're going?
yes,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
Well, I think it was one of the best things that's ever happened in human history, and we're so lucky and I feel so grateful to have experienced all that, because what it really showed us is who we really are. And the way I quote unquote survived that experience is to realize that it sounds a little bit corny, but there is a blessing in everything. There is a good side to everything. And I think most of us, unfortunately, and this is the core of my work, most of us are conditioned without us realizing it to only see the negative. And when we see the negative, we do something with our brain that shuts off our awareness. So if you can get around that, you can see that everything is perfect. There's a lesson, there's a good side to everything. On a practical level, I lived through my experience was in very much a bubble, to ignore it as much as possible, if you like. Currently, I'm in New Zealand, but at the time, I don't actually live in New Zealand because I don't actually live anywhere. I'm a permanent traveler, and at the time, I was in Spain, I think, and my attitude and our attitude was to say, what's good about all of this? Because a lot of good, an enormous amount of good has come out of it, and how can I enjoy life with the way it is presented to me at the moment?
Well,
And it was fine.
yeah, and the thing is that it's a monopoly. You got to figure it out one way or another. There's no other choice, you know? I mean, and I do jazz radio, and I remember John Coltrane always said one of the most destructive words in the English language is the word no. And when you think yes, and you rearrange how you think, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about. It's all about perception.
Absolutely. Perception is everything. And that's one of the big lessons from everything that we're going through, is you can see the world as chaotic with all sorts of problems, or you can see the world as it really is, full of amazing things happening, such as the opportunity we have to speak right now and
Yeah.
even to talk about these things. And the new awarenesses that come out of so-called crises and the unexpected developments, there's a lot more people working from home, a lot more people evaluating what they should be doing with their life and changing their priorities. And a lot of new technologies and ways of communicating are coming out of, what have been times where the challenge has been there to create those new things. So it is all about perception. And how I work is, as I show people how the brain works, to realize how perception works on a biological as well as every other level.
So let's get to the essence of who you are and what you do. I'm going to put you hypothetically in front of a bunch of grade school kids, third graders. One of them looks up and asks you, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
What I do is help people figure out why their life is the way it is. Because if I was to say to you in third grade, well, why are you in this class at this school with those parents doing what you're doing? What's the real reason? And when I talk to adults, they would say, well, I have my goals and I'm working on things and I'm creating things. But when you think about it, they're not the reasons why you have what you have in your life. It's not the result of a goals list. It's not the result of what you're working on. Most of what happens in your life just shows up. I mean, we're talking now. Did we know each other a week ago, a day ago? Had we met before? The people who are listening, are you listening to this because you expected to listen to me and to you? Or is there something else at work? And there is something else at work, and that's what I help people to discover, what's really at work, what's really creating their life. And when you start to know that, then you can have an influence to start getting the things that make you happy rather than the things that don't make you happy.
So when you were in the third grade, what was your dream? What did you want to be when you grew up?
The best person I could be, the most successful person that I could be. I didn't know what that was,
Yeah.
but I was a real, seeker and a striver and trying to be more and do more. I think at that age, I was probably wanted to be an inventor, actually,
Yeah.
be a creator.
Yeah.
But
So
I've always been driven by how can you be the best that you can be? How can you be happy and have a great life?
yeah, and that encompasses everything. So whatever you choose, that's where you go. So let's go back as a nomadic soul. Let's go back to your beginnings. Where did it all begin for you? And how did these seeds get into you that grew into who you are? Because you're not the kind of guy that's just doing a job where you're going to get a paycheck. You're really giving and trying to help and make a change for people for the better. How did that happen? What happened in your childhood to become who you are today?
Well, as I said, I've always been that sort of driven person and trying to figure out, what's the secret to being successful. Even as a young child, I know I was like that. And I was brought up in a religious household, and I was told by my parents and teachers and the priests and so on that if you want to be happy, if you want to be successful, the key to that is to pray to God, ask God for what you want, and God will give it to you. So I actually tried that, and I really put God to the test. I remember once when I was about 8 or 9 years of age, going to 6 a.m. Mass every day in the winter for a month to ask God for something, because I thought, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to ask for something. I can't remember what it was. It was like to win a competition at school or something. I'm going to do this every day for a month, and I'm going to put in all this effort. And God, if this theory works, then he must give it to me. Now, he didn't give it to me, but that sent me on this path of thinking, well, how do you be happy and successful? Because religion, the way I was being taught it, didn't seem to really do it, because most of the people I knew weren't that happy. They weren't any happier than anyone else. And really that sent me in a direction of a whole series of trying lots of different things to try and figure out the secret to success. And I tried spirituality. I did lots of different spiritual techniques and studied different things. I did lots of personal development stuff. I went to seminars all over the world, which from New Zealand, where I was living, is a long way, anywhere. And I read lots of books, did courses, did stuff on reprogramming your mind and changing your beliefs and doing all these techniques. And I became pretty successful because I also studied business. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've had at least 18 businesses in my life. I became really successful, but I had lots of stress and problems. And I thought, stress and problems, just like everybody says, they're a natural part of success. You have to learn to deal with it. This is what you're going to face. But something really weird happened to me that should never have happened in my mid-40s. Here was I, an expert on success. Here was I doing really well, multimillionaire. And then I lost everything. Literally overnight, I became homeless, and I ended up moving back in with my elderly mother and sleeping on the sofa in her living room. And I thought, why has this happened to me? I know everything about success. I know about positive thinking and prayer and setting goals, and and I know all about business and how to do things. This wasn't on my goals list. This wasn't part of the plan. I'm doing something wrong. So that's what really set me on realizing that the path I'd been going down with stress and struggle and trying to achieve and trying to learn more and find out more and set bigger goals, there was something that didn't work, because here I was homeless and penniless. And the funny thing about that was when I rebuilt my life, came through it, went through the other side, I built my life back, but in quite a different way, because things started to just happen in my life, good things. I'd meet people who I hadn't seen in years who'd say, hey, Liam, here's an opportunity to do something, a business idea. And I did, and it worked. And it was almost like, whereas, and this sounds a little bit corny, but was before I'd been chasing after success. What's the new thing? What's the bigger goal? How can I find more? How can I do more? And that brought me a lot of stress and problems, as well as it was like a roller coaster. But now it was like success was finding me. So new ideas, coincidences, synchronicities, if you like, luck seemed to be coming to me, and everything was falling into place. And the best thing was I didn't have any stress or problems. And I remember waking up one day and thinking, I'm doing all these great things that I've always wanted to do. I'm sailing around the world on a boat. I've got a great new relationship with somebody who's fantastic to be with. I'm really happy. I'm enjoying my life. I don't have stress and problems. What's the difference? And that's what set me on this different direction to try and figure out what I was doing differently, because I thought, I don't want to mess this up. I want to keep doing more of it. And it really led me to the discoveries I've made about how, as I said at the beginning, how we really get the results that we do in our life, what really affects our life. And it's not to do with what we think it is and what we're trying to make happen. That's not how it works.
Yeah, that makes sense. So is someone that's highly driven like you, that believes in, obviously, you know, finding finding not only your own path, but helping other people find their path. Who's been a hero for you or a role model in your life?
Um, Myself, I'm sorry to say. I think the idea with role models is it takes us away from realizing we are the perfect example of who we want to be. We just don't know how to express that, how to do what we're naturally designed to do, which is to be the expression of the best person that we can possibly be. That is our purpose of being alive biologically, is to be the best that we can be. And therefore, copying anybody else or saying, I want to be like them, unfortunately, although we've been taught it's a good idea, it doesn't really work. What we need to do is follow ourselves, have the knowledge and awareness that we have all the answers, that we are a perfect person, if you like, and we can live an amazing life, and we don't need to copy anybody else. In fact, copying other people is normally gets us into trouble.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you
Mm.
this. If you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now and spend a little time with them, who would it be?
Um, there's a couple of people, but they're quite unrelated to what you might think. And before I mention who they are, the reason I would like to meet them is because they, I feel, are expressing the truth about who they are. And they might be quite controversial, but that's the whole point in some ways. They are being themselves without reference to other people. One is a man called Max Kaiser. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a Bitcoin person, and he's a real out there, doesn't care what people think. He has a vision for himself and how the world works. And I think he's inspiring to a lot of people for that reason.
Awesome. So let me ask you this. Every day you wake up, you're obviously highly driven. I think I have a decent idea of kind of a core philosophy, but let's dig in a little bit more. What is it that ultimately motivates you every day to get things done, to help people to be who you are, the best version of you?
Just taking the next step and having an awareness of what an incredible world we live in, how perfect everything is in this moment. And there's nothing that needs to be done other than what feels right in this moment. Because just to tell you a little bit about the brain and your listeners, how the brain works, most people think, it's what you're thinking about that creates your life. It's not. There's another part of your brain, another physical part of your brain that is driving your life and is designed to give you everything, to make every moment perfect for you. But you can only unlock that part of your brain when you stop using the thinking part of your brain and you use this other part, which I call your creative brain. So in terms of motivation, and I feel excited and passionate, it's 6 o'clock in the morning here, and I'm up talking to you. It's great. It's all perfect. So I don't have any goals. I don't have anything where this is what I'm trying to achieve. I'm just enjoying being in this moment right now, and trusting and knowing that every moment is the right moment, and this part of my brain is guiding me to the right moment all the time. What do I need to worry about? It says in the Bible, give no thought for tomorrow. Do not worry about tomorrow. Do not worry about what you shall eat, drink, or wear. It'll all be provided for you. And that's the truth. And by tomorrow doesn't mean, when the sun rises, it means the next moment. Everything's perfect. Everything will be provided if you use the machinery that you've been given the right way to allow it to show up. So, you don't need to have goals. You don't need to be motivated. This will all happen naturally. Sorry, you've gone silent.
Sorry, my bad.
There we go.
I accidentally hit the mute. So there's almost seems to be a part of what I'm understanding you're saying, a little bit of like, stop pressing into what you want so hard and creating all of this stress. Let your gut and intuition and the magic of this reality kind of take over.
There's lots of, if you want to know how your life works, just look at nature, because we are all governed by natural laws. Nature rules. We're part of nature. If you think you can walk out a 10-story building and go up, doesn't matter how motivated you are, how much you pray, how much you think positive, you're going to go down. Gravity is a law of nature. And one of the other laws of nature, if you look really closely, is the law of least resistance. Things go, the less resistance there is, the faster things go. If you want to ride a bike, you try riding it into the wind, it's going to be a struggle and you're not going to go very fast. But if you go with the wind, you're going to go a lot faster. And all of nature, apart from humans, is guided and ruled by this law of least resistance. If you look at, a stream, the water runs downstream, it doesn't go upstream. So we've got to remember that this law of least resistance is how we operate as well. When you give up resistance, when you stop trying to fight what is and go with what is, which takes what the Bible says, again, faith, trust, having no fear, everything will work out fine. That's how we're biologically designed. We're not designed to fight and struggle. That's not a natural part of who we are or of any life.
So of all these paths and successes that you've had in life, what are you the proudest of?
Talking to you right here, right now.
Excellent. Let me ask you
Perfect
this.
moment.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah. So let's get into the wisdom. This is kind of a wisdom question. If you were to have a dream tonight, you ran into a younger version of yourself, say in your 20s, you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on what you've learned and lived in your life. What would you tell that young version of you?
Relax, don't worry, everything's perfect. And one of the funny things is, when I lost everything, some people said to me, how did you live through that? That must have been absolutely terrible. That'd be the worst thing I can imagine, was having spent all of your life really working hard, building up wealth, building up security and all these things, and just losing it overnight. How could you deal with that? And, at the time, it wasn't pleasant. But looking back on it, it's one of the best things that ever happened, because it's led me along to discover, I'd still be that guy struggling, doing the next seminar, and having all the stress and problems and not really getting to where I wanted, which was to feel in control of my life and be really happy. I'd still be that guy if that experience hadn't happened. So therefore, how can we judge anything that in our life we think is a problem, is bad, is, unpleasant? How can we say that that's not part of a bigger plan, that we're going to look back at some point and say, wow, I'm glad that happened. My life wouldn't be so great if it hadn't happened. So that's the advice to my younger self, is to say, it's all perfect. Don't worry about it. You're going to look back and see how perfect it is, and you're going to get to a so much better place when you just allow the right things to show up in your life.
Isn't that the essence of wisdom, though, is that we do look back on our lives and learn from these bad things that happen? I mean, that's kind of what we should be doing, I would think.
For sure. Sure, but the challenge is to realize that when we're living through it, that it does have a meaning and a purpose that's greater than what we can see. And when you start to do that, you can start to change your situation, because when you do that, when you stop being stressed, you activate a different part of your brain that is the part of your brain that is going to bring you the right things rather than the problems that you've created.
As a writer, what was the first book when you were a kid that really parted the curtains, really either made you want to read more or want to write yourself?
Oh gosh, I can't. was I was a bit of a nutcase reader on lots of, if you're talking about as a child,
Yeah.
lots of novels and Charles Dickens. I used to love reading Charles Dickens. Probably he was one of my favorites when I was in my early teens.
Excellent. Let me ask you this. Everyone out there, we have all these pockets of people that exist in our lives. We have family, we have friends, we have clients, we have colleagues, but you're in control. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm just the best, trying to be the best version of myself. I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience, and I'm just guided in every moment along the right path. I have no sense of, I'm this hero or I'm a XYZ. I'm just experiencing the moment.
So I got to tell you, when you said it's 6 a.m. there, I always love these conversations because I love the future. You're right there. You're
Yeah, the world's still here, by the way. It's Tuesday morning, and don't worry, everybody, because we're the first country that, for the new, we're ahead of the curve of everywhere else time-wise.
Yeah,
And don't worry,
absolutely.
the world will survive tomorrow if it's still Monday. It's
I
still
feel
here.
like I feel like I'm in a new incarnation of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's like you're my star guide. Um,
Yeah.
so speaking of being a star guide and the future and everything that's going on, where is the best place for people to go on the web to find out more about you, what you do, hire you, get your books, anything revolving around your world?
My website, which is just my name, liamnaden.com. Everything's there. I've got podcasts, books, lots of stuff.
Excellent. Liam, man, this has been great. Thank you, A, for being flexible and rescheduling. You're fascinating, man. Thank you for opening up your world. Send my love to New Zealand. I want to get out there one day.
You will, I'm sure.
Yes.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much for having me on the show.
Oh, my
An
pleasure,
honor.
man. Thank you. Best
Thank
of
you.
luck. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye. See ya.